Good morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul.
and Jolene. And today we're talking about...
Playing yourself in RPGs.
As a character? Do you mean really playing yourself?
No, not
like
exactly.
We're all at
playing
a
yourself.
gaming convention and these are the people here?
No, not quite. Though there is some games where you do play exactly yourself. But no, we're talking about when you play any role-playing game and you play yourself as if they are the character in the adventure. Like if you are playing D&D, you are playing yourself more or less personality-wise and everything as the barbarian or as the wizard.
Okay, I don't think you have the same stats as a barbarian or a wizard.
Yeah, that's where it gets a little funky, right? Because like you don't have those kind of abilities and stuff. So I don't think when this question was on Reddit, I thought it was an interesting question. And I thought, well, does anybody actually play themselves? Now, there is a game called End of the World series by, I think it was Fantasy Flight that made the game, where it was End of the World by the zombie apocalypse, End of the World by robot apocalypse, End of the World by the gods coming back apocalypse, blah, blah, blah. And you would go around, you would be around the table and you would play yourself. You would come up with stats of your own. I don't remember what stats they had, but like strength, dexterity, or agility, and stuff like that. But the only caveat to that is that everybody around the table would have to agree that those were truly those stats truly represented you, the person.
So if I were doing that, we'd have to have a clumsy stat.
Or your dexterity would be so high.
Couldn't be. Is that what the person meant?
No, I think they said they meant, we don't know, right? Because the person did not answer back after they posted the question. I took it as you play your personality, right? You play yourself in the game, not you yourself, Saul Morales from San Jose, but you play Saul-like character who is a knight or who is a wizard, blah, blah, blah.
I think it's more that people tend to get into the habit of playing the same kind of character. Say, for me, when when we played Pathfinder, I really liked playing the sorceress.
That's
so then when
character.
we went to D&D 5th edition, I played a sorceress for a long time. And I did a magic a magic user character in Shadowrun. But then I branched out.
You branched out.
Well, because like when you play Feng Shui, you can play anything you want. And I always liked the thieves, the second story kind of man. And in Feng Shui, you can do crazy things like run up the building and try to jump somewhere.
Right,
stuff
do massive jumps and stuff, yes.
And so after doing that a couple of times and then playing with different people who played different kinds of characters, I go, oh, I could do that. So like Augustine wanted me to be a street samurai for one of the Shadowrun games we were in. So he made me a character and I had fun playing that. I think her name was Kiki Howitzer.
Oh, yes. How could I forget that character? Yes. So I think most people... Okay. So when I started playing... I know I'm going to bore people who already heard this story. I started playing in 1978, so I was around 11 years old. Now, I think the only thing about role-playing that I understood is that you got to be in the world of Lord of the Rings, or in this case... The Hobbit had just come out, I think, on Disney somewhere around that time period. I hadn't read The Hobbit. I hadn't read too many fantasy novels. I was 11. I probably didn't start reading until a little bit after that, probably until I went to junior high. So my experience was very limited as far as other worlds and other settings and stuff like that. So I was literally playing in that kind of a game, where I had limited experience as far as playing something other than myself. So my characters were very basic. So though I didn't name them after myself, I did come up with weird, mystical, or medieval sounding names. They were something totally made up in my brain of a totally different person. I think that's what the original question was. Do you play yourself or do you play somebody just totally different than yourself? That's not even part of any kind of personality that you may have. And I would think that would be very tough for an 11-year-old to do, unless they were really good at acting. Now, I equate it to acting in a certain sense, and I'll come back to this again. But I think acting is a profession, right? People are good at it. Some people have talent for it. Some people work at it and they become better at it. But as an 11-year-old, as most of us don't act, it's very difficult for us to become another person. Now we've heard about method acting, how they get into their character and they're in character the whole time when they're in the trailer and stuff like that. But you also got to remember that those people, actors, they are being directed, right? They're being told what to do. They're wearing their outfits to make them be in character. And not only that, they're given lines to say. So it's not your own words saying it like people who role play. So it's a very much different thing than acting.
It is a very different thing than acting.
My English is not so good sometimes. So it's a different thing, right? It's much difficult, I think, to do it ad hoc without a script, without being in the world other than in your mind. Though some people might dress up a little bit. I never did, but some people might. At 11, I just played like an aspect of myself, and then that's what I did. And for many years, that's all I did. And I never even thought about playing a totally different personality than I had, simply because I didn't have that much experience. Like at 11 years old, and even let's say at 13, 14, I had not seen that many movies. I had not read that many books, and I was only beginning to start reading a lot of different books and watching different movies other than Follow Me Boys or the Shaggy DA and stuff like that. I think we're kind of like, what is it? The cards are stacked against us as far as role playing a totally different character.
Only if you're starting out as a kid, right? And it totally depends on the person too. Cause
right.
If you're starting out as an adult doing role playing games, then you're going to have a lot more things to base
a little bit more experience.
Yeah, more experience.
Right. And I think that's what makes a difference, is that some people start older, right? And some people who are attracted to this kind of hobby, I'm going to guess more than not, people who are into either reading a lot of books, watching a lot of movies, or they're even, in high school plays and stuff, and then they're in theater, whether it's in high school or the community theater. And even that is a little bit of experience as far as being in a different role.
I've never played with anyone like that was in theater. Not when I was a teenager. Not when I'm an adult. Maybe Felipe was in one play.
Yes, he was in one play, but he was in with the theater nerds, kids. So, I'm only going by what I see. So what was weird is when I saw this question, I always thought, as a kid, well, I play this way, so everybody plays this way. It's a common fallacy that we do as people, as I know I do it all the time, that my experience is what everybody else's experience is, like whether growing up in Baranda being Salinas' version of Mayberry, or growing up you could go ride your bike everywhere and make sure you come home before the lights turn on. We didn't have lights in our neighborhood, but before the sun goes down and stuff like that. I know people do these days may not experience that, but that's what I know. So I think, everybody kind of experiences that. But that's not true, right? Everybody comes from different lives and has different experiences. They may not play the same way that I did. They may look at, even as a kid, they might look like, I'm going to play Star Wars. I'm not going to play Luke or Darth Vader. I'm going to play one of the pilots, unnamed pilot. And you're going to give them their own personality, and you're going to give them just by the way they look, or even one word they said, or a line they said. And I think that there might be some people that are just naturally able to play a different character outside of themselves. And even now, I've been role playing since 1978. I don't know how many years that is, a whole bunch. It's still hard for me to play a character that completely outside of myself. There's always some aspect of me that I'm either exploring or is somehow attached to that character that I'm playing. For the most part, I think the only very few times have I made a character that wasn't entirely me, or an aspect of myself.
Okay, I don't know what that means, but whatever.
We don't know what that means.
An aspect of yourself.
Well, like let's say you take a personality trait that I may have. Like you always say that I'm like a white knight, always judging people and stuff. So I might take might become a paladin, play a paladin who does exactly that, and is to the letter that, and with no quarter to evil, blah blah blah. Right? I'm a man of my word, or my word is law kind of guy.
You might be a little too chaotic to play that.
I could try. And so you're right. See that's where my character fills in. My personality falls in or breaks the fourth wall. Right. That's what you say. Well, I'm too chaotic to play a paladin. Right, because you think I'm chaotic. So, and then I couldn't play an evil character because I don't like playing evil characters, and you probably think that it's not within my personality to be that way.
So the question was, what was the question again?
So do you play yourself when playing RPGs?
I think you should make I think you should talk more about how could you play different types of characters without having to play yourself.
Okay. What do you mean by that? Playing different types of characters.
I mean, if you think about it, like I can think of Morgan when we were playing Feng Shui. He decided to play an Arnold Schwarzenegger character.
Okay.
The Terminator, right?
Right.
He just based his whole character off of that.
That's true.
And a lot of people do, like when we were playing, I forget what it was.
I think that's an easy way of doing it, right? To play somebody totally outside yourself.
Yeah.
Is pick a character that you've seen on TV and emulate that character. And that character may not have any kind of personality linked to you. You know, you may not even like playing that character because he's so alien to you. But you want to, extend your role-playing chops and go, I'm going to play this character, which I may not really like, but I'm going to try to play it as best as I can.
But if people are having fun playing a sorcerer and that's what they want to play and that's all they ever want to play, then I think that's fine too, right?
Yes. You are jumping the gun on my list. But
I'm not sure if the people, I know that when you told me about this topic, you said some people go, well, that's not role playing.
No. That's what I remember somebody said that to me, that I wasn't role playing, that we just played the rules. It had nothing, I'm not really too much to do with this topic, but they said, well, it seems like you're just role playing yourself. I go, oh, well, how can I not role play myself? And then we got into, not an argument or even a discussion. She said, there was a woman, I remember that. I forget who it was.
Anyway,
I took it as a slight because I kind of intended it as a slight. I wasn't really role playing. I was just playing tabletop miniature games. And that's it, with squares and stuff. And the role-playing aspect was just me talking to character every once in a while.
So that we probably shouldn't have taken it as a slight. That was probably that person's own issues.
Well, no, because I think she was right. I don't remember her name, but I think she was right. I was just playing myself and not really getting into a role of a different type of anything. I was just like role-playing myself in space. I think it was playing space opera. So what I want to talk about is role playing yourself. Now I don't think I ever role played myself in any game, right? I didn't role play Saul being a knight. I never even thought of that. And yet when I was looking at the answers to the question that this person posted, there was a lot of people saying, well, in real life I'm kind of boring, so why would I want to role play that? I'm like, well, I think you're missing the gist of the question. Is that I don't think anybody role plays themselves in the game, really.
That's why they call it role playing. You create a character and you play that character. Whether you do it the way other people think you should or not isn't really important, right?
Right.
It's just that you're having fun doing it.
Correct.
And not disturbing people around you.
Right. Yes. So I think you're right. I think we're all supposed to be having fun. But at the same time, I think when you role play something other than yourself, which I think most people do anyway, and the further you get from yourself, you explore a different role. Like Morgan, he played the Terminator, and he really stuck to that model of a character type that he wanted to play, and it was kind of funny, right? Because it was kind of funny, and I think we all had a lot of fun playing. And I think Morgan was having fun too.
Well, yeah.
So I think that's the easiest thing to do, is to emulate somebody else or a character you've seen, and that's pretty cool.
Or at least take the idea of something that you've seen, and and then go with it from there.
Right. So I had some problems I had with with role playing, that way of becoming somebody totally different than yourself is, we're not trained actors, right? We don't have years of experience or even any kind of training, most of us, in that endeavor. So, and I think it's difficult for us to think of ourselves as actors when we're the ones coming up with the stuff. I mean, it's funny because people say, "Well, we're like actors in a movie." Well, we're not, because we're not fed lines, right? If we were fed lines, that would make us more actors, and then it would be a radio play then instead of a role playing game. Because we got to make up our own stuff. We're more than just actors. We're screenwriters, and we're directors, and we come up with the props and everything, and even if it's only in our imagination, and scenes, right, that painters do and stuff like that. So it's a little more difficult than just acting in a sense, because you really have to act and react to things that are happening. And I guess there's some actors who are really good at improv, but still, for the most part, they want you to read what's on the cards and not go beyond the script.
I think sometimes when people say you should be more like an actor, they're talking about doing a certain voice for that character, or having a certain, like, they always, what would you call it? Mannerisms, yeah. Like they always limp or something. And I know you're sitting at a table, but you
could do the old hitch the shoulder to the side. Another thing is if you're really young, how much experience do you have trying to role play outside yourself? I think that would be really difficult. So I don't blame myself for playing an aspect of myself at 11, 12, 13, even 15 years old. But it took me a while before I even thought about playing something totally outside my comfort wheel zone.
And it's really not acting in any way, because you're presented with a problem or a situation, and then you're told to figure it out.
Right, and you're thinking it, not your character's thinking it, because you can't.
Everybody
separate
around
yourself.
the table is thinking.
Right.
That goes back to a Shadowrun game, right? Where you spend like 30, 40 minutes, 2 hours trying to figure out your plan.
The plan, yes.
And then it all falls apart in the first 25 seconds when you start playing it out, right?
So, yes, as the first gunshot rings out on your secret entrance into the security place. And I think even now that I have a lot of experience role playing and GMing, I think that makes it a lot easier for me to think of ways to not play myself, or not play aspects of myself, or play people who are really totally different than myself. And I think that just happens because you have a lot of experience, and you're like, oh, I see, I could play, like you said, I could play this character out of that movie, even though it's a Western and we're playing Star Wars. Yeah, sure, I could play the ugly from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Right, it's conniving, sniveling, only for myself kind of character. Yeah, that could work.
That doesn't sound like a fun character to play.
Well, some people like that kind of character, right? Okay. They like that kind of
the
gritty, or you can't trust them, and they're fine with your other characters not trusting them, because that's just the way he is.
Right,
it makes sense. I think when we do that, I think our games get better, right? When we are able to really role play a character that's not ourselves, because then you're exploring, what would that character do, right? Not me as Saul. And what would that character do? Well, that character in this frame of mind, from his background, their background, and their motivations.
I have serious doubts that most people playing role-playing games go through that in their head.
I would
when
say
they're making the character, they go, "Oh, this is a good idea. I'm going to give him this agility, and I'm going to give him this, this."
Right.
When they're doing the stats and coming up with the backstory and stuff,
well,
and then they just go from there, right?
That's what I would say is to make your character better, your player character more rounded or believable, or have even a better footing for you to fill in their shoes. You do give your PC a background, and then actually put a good background, right? Because we don't want the.
And it also depends on the kind of game you're playing, right? Because like when we went and played. The last time we played Star Trek, when Jonah was running the game at
yes,
was it Dundracon? I think so.
It was Dundracon.
And we just sat down at the table. There were like 6 or 7 of us there, and people picked which character they wanted to be, made their character, and or filled in the spaces on the character because a lot of it was already created for you.
Yeah, I think, what did we do in that case? We didn't.
You didn't really have to have a backstory because you knew the position you were playing. Like if you were the captain, you were
That's
the
what it
doctor,
was.
you were the science officer.
Everybody had to play a different role.
Yes, because you have to in that. Well, you don't have to, but if you have 4 captains on one ship, it's not going to be very.
Yeah, it's not a very good idea. You're right. We had a chief medical officer and a chief engineer and stuff
And
like that.
whichever role you played gave you different skills, right? So you were just. I ended up playing it. I was like the person on the controls.
Ensign?
I wasn't playing an ensign. But I could do things. I could make sure. I was a security because I could fire the guns and stuff like that.
I forgot what I was. No, so we did make the characters at the table.
Yes.
Yeah.
We filled in their stats.
Well, I think that is something that you can do. Is like, instead of playing a.
And you do that a lot of times when you play games at conventions. You provide the characters. So
Right.
if you're walking into a game and the character's been provided for you, then you read it and you just kind of go. You get an idea of the character and go with it. You might have it might be a book that you read or something, like a detective or.
Right. No, I agree. You're right, because like many times when I go to a game at a convention, they have pre-generated characters, and they might give you a blurb of what that character is like, but for the most part, I always say, well, this is their interpretation of what this character might be. If you have a different idea of what their personality might be, go ahead and change it. You don't have to. You're not, restricted by what's on this paper, other than their stats, because that's all about. You can only have so many stats. They all can be 18s, right? If you're playing something like D&D. So I think it's very helpful for playing in those situations to have pre-generated characters or pre-made characters, and that helps you as a player play something totally maybe outside what you're usually play. Like for a while there, you were playing sorceress, and no matter what game it was, whether it was 5th edition Shadowrun or 5th edition D&D or Pathfinder, you really liked that kind of character, so you were playing more or less that character over and over again. But when you decided to play a street samurai, it was a different game for you because you had different abilities and different skills.
Right.
So it changed the way you could more or less you could do, and therefore change your way your character acted and reacted to things.
Right. Instead of a magic user, you're like, if you're playing a street samurai, you're probably either work for a corporation or the army.
You don't feel as squishy as a.
Yeah, you're not as squishy
as
because you can cut people in half with your sword
or your bullets,
or your
or stream of automatic gunfire. Yeah, and I think that's
the last Shadowrun game we played. Mm. My character was a sniper, and I based that off of guess what?
No idea. I know you probably told me.
NCIS.
Oh,
he was a sniper. So that was pretty easy for me to, something that we watch all the time because my mom liked it, right? So something easy to base the character off of, right?
Yes. Another thing is if you're playing a character, a good idea to try to play something totally different than yourself or your own personality is look at their background and how has that background molded that character, right? Because that's not you, right? You didn't. Your village didn't get attacked by orcs and almost made an orphan, and therefore you avenged their death by killing all orcs. No, you were your parents got away, resettled, and that's going to change the aspects of your character. If you never, as a kid, I never was orphaned and was never displaced in my own.
Just so you know, Disney gave that to us, right? Bambi's parents got killed.
Yeah,
everybody's parents got killed.
Yeah. I haven't heard that. And also thinking about where your character is at the start of the game, and think we're just the ending. You have no idea how it's going to end, the campaign or the game, but having an inkling of where you think the character's ending might look like. Is he gonna be the lone warrior, the last of the group who finally is done with battle, puts down his sword in the ground and is at peace, or is he trying to start a new settlement for his lord and rise the ranks to become a lord themselves, right? And or whatever. But it's good ideas, like a good mental game to think about. Well, where's this guy's going to end up? Where's
Sometimes
this
it's not even you playing that game. Sometimes the GM gives you secrets, or you have this person, this is your secret, or this is the person that
Right.
you want to help. This is your friend, and this is your enemy, right? And
right. The GM's going to give you stuff to that's going to manipulate your character's life path, and the way you react and what happens in those situations is going to change the way your character becomes, even though it's not what you thought might end, right? You might thought, well, he's going to die a lonely ex-mercenary, and then in the game it turns out that he turns out to be a pretty happy guy. He finds a wife, the love of his life, has tons of children, and is living in Mayberry. You never know. You never know what's going to happen. But I think it's good mental idea to, or mental, what is it, exercises to think about where your character might end up and compare him how he's going to, from where he started. Because a good story, and for the most part, that's what we're trying to do, is tell good stories. Have fun, but tell good stories. Is how has the character changed? Is if a character doesn't change at all, it's kind of boring, right? But if he changes even a little bit from the beginning of the game to the end of the campaign, maybe he's not such doodly do right at the end of the campaign, right? He's a little bit more jaded. So maybe, being, the man of your word all the time and not lying ever, or not letting anybody else lie, probably not the best way to go about things. So that character has changed from where he started to where the game ends. And I think that's pretty cool. That's you can see that progression. You can see where the character might have made different choices and ended up in a different
now I
place.
assume you're talking about more than one game, because usually in one game the character's not going to change all that much during the game.
I'm thinking of like campaign.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. A long campaign, right? Exactly. I think that's what happens naturally anyway when people are playing for an extended period of time in a long campaign. But even in one game, right? Even in one session, your character, like say,
Well, if you have an idea what your character is going to be in one session, you've read it, and you go, okay, I'm going to play it this way. And then
right.
some of the other people start talking and doing things, and then it might totally change what you were planning to the way
Right.
you were thinking.
Yeah, yeah. You're going to have to react to what their characters do and don't do, and how they react and don't react. Yes. And I mean, and that could happen in one session, right? I mean, what is it? I think when I ran the Tecmo game, and I ran it quite a few times. That's one adventure. There was a person in charge, right, and she was like royalty. So she was literally in charge, right? There was no ifs, ands, or ways around it. But she was very inexperienced. The character was. So one person, the first person who ran it, always wanted everybody's input. Right, well, which was totally fine, right? Because she was like never left the compound type of person. So it's kind of like a science fiction fantasy in the far future. So everything's kind of degraded into fantasy, but there's technological stuff around, right? So in this world, there's different clans. They're all in charge of. There's like the people in charge of winemaking, stone masonry, all kinds of stuff. Well, then there's the Imperial clan, who's basically the people in charge. So she was a direct descendant, or in direct line, maybe
To the throne.
to the throne, but it'd be like a lot of people would have to die, like 335 or something like that. So,
But she could still tell people to kill you, and they would.
yes, exactly. And those were like life and death orders she could give. So this character, player goes, well, I have two problems, not problems, but two things this character has: total authority and not a lot of experience, right? Which is kind of scary. But what he did, he wanted people's opinion, but he also let it be known, under no circumstances were they to tell her what to do. I just want your input, right? And so that character, the player, was fantastic because he played that character to the hilt, and she would take people's advice. But as soon as they start pressing more, well, I think you should do this, he goes, know your place, for I am one of the in line to the throne. And they're like, whoa. because she could tell the soldiers, there was a few soldiers with them, put your head on a pike, and they would do it, just because her word was law. So I think it was interesting, because then everybody reacted to her like they were really scared of her. Right, one, because they didn't trust her.
Should be.
They didn't trust her because she didn't know nothing, right? Because she literally had never left the.
But she was in charge.
But she was in charge, and so that game was very different than the next one I ran, when the person was like lackadaisical about her imperial status and was like, "Well, we'll just take a consensus of what everybody wants to do and we'll go with it." So then they were much friendlier with her, right? More, what is it? More buddy with her and the character. And the person playing that character was very buddy with the whole crew, so it was more like an adventuring party,
right?
Instead of this hierarchy of I'm in charge and you people are under me. And it was very fun to see, and it was like, hey, everybody played differently. So the character, so when the first person who was very playing the innocent, not knowing very much, but also knowing her place in the imperial structure, by the time he got to it was a guy.
Yeah.
Played. By the time he got to the end of the adventure, he really was leaning heavily on the other characters. Like I really want to know what you guys think, because some of them were sugarcoating stuff.
Right.
Because they're like, well, I don't want her to cut it off my head, because she gets pissed
Which
off.
Which is a normal thing to do, and because that situation.
Because she would play herself he played her like a brat.
Yeah.
Like, you will listen to what I say no matter what. I'm like, okay. And so by the end of that adventure, and it was only a 6-hour adventure, by the end of the adventure, she had softened up her stance, and all the other players were like, treated her as a friend, instead of this like, we better watch our ass, cross our T's and dot our I's. You could do that kind of character development in 6 hours. It doesn't have to be Storm King's Thunder.
But you never know. Obviously, the first guy was playing it like I would play a princess, right? She's in charge of you because you're taking her somewhere, but you need to guide her kind of thing.
Right.
So I can see him playing that, and that I don't think that's his personality. I think that's probably just the way that he knows a certain style of things to do. Whereas the other person, that might have been her character, her character, the way that she is, getting everybody's input.
Yes.
Or maybe she was just playing it that way because the girl was inexperienced.
Right. But
does it matter? Because both parties had fun.
No. Yeah, it was a blast. Yes.
I think the most important thing to take away from this topic is that it doesn't matter how you play the characters, as long as you are having fun and the people around you are having fun, right?
Right.
You're not in it to, maybe some people are in it to something cathartic about something, but most people are in it just to get the loot.
I mean, I think more than just getting the loot. I think that's what I'm driving at. As a kid, when I was younger, that's all I wanted to do. But as older, we do want to tell a good story, and a story that has to that makes sense, right? There might be some illogical consistencies in the game, but for the most part, I think people will really enjoy a good game when everything makes sense, right? That's why when at the end of the game, when I run a game at the comp, people going, "How did we do?" I'm like, well, "You guys did good. You guys solved the problem, blah, blah, blah." No, but how did we do it? How did we do? So they're asking, did they do a good job?
Right.
Did they do a good job?
Did we solve what we were supposed to?
And I go, did you guys have fun? He goes, oh yeah, it was a fun game, blah, blah, blah. And I go, well, okay. So they want like tidbits of like did they get all the clues? Did they hit all the gophers on the top of the heads to make them go?
They don't know that you just had little things put out there for them, and
well, I do, and there's some things that don't get,
and they just sometimes they go in a totally different direction,
right? And
you just go with it,
and I just go with it, and a lot of times, and I don't want to say they're railroady, but they are, because they're usually sent on a mission in every adventure that I run. So because it makes it easier at a convention.
At a convention, yeah.
But I give them total like leeway as to what you're going to do. Like if you don't want to solve this thing, well, they're like, well, let's leave this village that's totally being taken advantage of and being attacked by some evil spirits, and let's go to our fort that we're supposed to assign to go get our orders. Well, what do you think that guy's going to say? He's going to hear what you tell him. He goes, march your dumb asses back and figure out what's going on. And then once they come back, it's going to be worse than it was when they left, right? Because what they could have solved as a
but that was their
problem,
choice, because they didn't want to do that.
I mean, it's a choice no matter what. I'm not going to take away that choice, because two of the guys go, what happens if we just leave? And then people are going, well, I don't think that's what we're supposed to do. Now, I'm not sure he was saying that's what it's supposed to do, like in game, like that's what his character's supposed to do, or that's what the players were supposed to do, right? Because they obviously knew that this was the location of the adventure. And then he said he answered himself, right? He broke that fourth wall. He goes, now I understand what you guys are saying, that you guys want to go to another place. I think me, the player, Tony, whatever his name was, the adventure's here. But I'm also thinking, my character's thinking, our orders are to solve problems, and this is obviously a problem. So even if we go away, we're going to get sent right back. And then things are going to be worse. And that's exactly what the adventure said.
Right.
That if they leave,
Yeah.
Marshall will come back, and then things are going to be real worse. They're going to be worse than they were before. So I think actions and decisions have consequences, but you can let them do whatever they want. I'm not going to say no, you can't go. There's a big wall of mist, and you get high. You can't go through it. You can't see.
You tried to leave, but you woke up right where you started.
Yes. You go through the mist, and you end up back where you started. Yeah, that's the thing about playing in a character that advances a little bit, that changes a little bit, is that it adds to the story in it. And I think everybody likes a story where things develop and make sense, I think.
So when people are playing characters, it's not so important whether they're playing an aspect of themselves,
right,
or they just picked a character and decided to go with
right. And I think the one thing is that they're playing within the character with that they themselves said that this, even if they don't say it to people, they say it into their own brain. It goes, oh, this is the character I want to play. This is the type. And as long as you stick to that kind of, not limits, but limits that you put on yourself, I think you're going to have a good time, because if you look through the character through that lens that you set up for yourself, it makes for a better game, because you're making decisions that not the player would make, but that character would make in that situation. At least you're trying to figure out what kind of decisions that. I think that makes for a better game, and everybody, might. I think people tell a better story when that happens. A better story is told by everybody, because by the end of the game, you're like, oh yeah, I ended up in a situation I never really thought I would be in.
I agree.
And I think people have fun when that happens. Like, oh yeah, this is a good game.
So however you play your characters, just go do it. Have fun. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
And you have a good day.